Why does Saturn have rings? What are the different types of clouds? How does an octopus swim? Why does a tiger have stripes? How do flowers grow?
Tell Me Why. The Video Encyclopedia is a reference work that's designed to show the answers to questions that young people ask. All materials used in this work are based upon the best-selling book series by Arkady Leokum.
Did the Vikings visit America?
About the year 1000, Leif Erikson sailed west from Greenland with 35 men. They reached a place where game, grass, and salmon abounded. They called this Vinland. In 1963, Dr. Helga Ingstad unearthed the remains of 9 buildings and a smithy which were unquestionably Viking in origin. They were on the tip of Newfoundland. These relics can be dated at about the year 1000, almost 500 years before the voyage of Columbus. They are proof that the Vikings did visit America.
Why wasn't America named after Columbus?
Columbus actually only discovered San Salvador, Cuba, and Hispaniola as he searched for a westward route to Asia. Since he had not found the riches of India, the rulers of Spain began to ask just what Columbus had found. A man named Amerigo Vespucci was sent to find out. After 2 voyages, Vespucci knew that he had found a new continent. In 1507, a geographer named Martin Walsemuller proposed naming the new continent America. He did this only because he felt that Amerigo Vespucci had proven that a new continent existed.
Tell me about some of the people who helped develop the new land.
Sir Walter Raleigh held various posts in the British government after winning favor with Queen Elizabeth I. He then decided to start settlements in America. We owe much of our knowledge of Indians, plant, and animal life to Raleigh's efforts. Raleigh introduced the potato from America to Ireland and made smoking tobacco popular in Europe. The Marquis de Lafayette was a brilliant leader in the French Revolution, but first he fought for the freedom of the American colonies. After seeing action in several battles, he went back to France, where he arranged for 6,000 French troops to be sent to America. He then laid siege to the British Army and was present when Cornwallis surrendered. Assured of American independence, Lafayette returned to France in 1781. He was only 24 years old.
How early did people begin to buy parts of America?
People began to purchase large parts of America as soon as they decided to live here. They had come from all over Europe and were seeking good land to grow crops as well as the freedom to own large parcels for their families. In 1664, a group of families were sent out by the Dutch West India Company. They quickly named the area around their settlement New Netherland. Then they built a small city which they called New Amsterdam. Today, we call this city New York. Peter Minuet was the Director General of the area, appointed by the Dutch West India Company. To keep the peace, he purchased New York from the Indians for about $24 worth of trade goods. Today, this section of land is called Manhattan. As the years passed, larger and larger chunks of land were officially added to the United States. 2 of the largest and most important were purchased from foreign governments. The Louisiana Purchase of 1803 really opened up the West to settlement. Napoleon of France had taken this vast area from Spain, but he was involved in a long war with England. He was afraid that the English might take the Louisiana territory away from him. Needing money to finance his war, Napoleon decided to sell this huge tract of land for $15 million. President Jefferson knew that controlling the mouth of the Mississippi River was vital to trade, and he authorized the purchase. Although some borders were disputed for years, the addition of the Louisiana Purchase doubled the size of the United States. There were many other purchases over the years as the United States bought land that had been claimed by foreign governments. One of the most important was the Alaska Purchase. The Russians had claimed Alaska in 1741. Their vessels often crossed the Bering Straits as fur traders and whaling ships found millions of animals roaming free. Before long, other governments were sending their traders to this area rich in natural wealth. In 1867, the British were talking about seizing the territory. Since the Russians were about to fight their own war at home, they decided to sell Alaska rather than defend it. Secretary of State Seward negotiated the purchase for $7,200,000. Although many people thought that this was too much money to spend for a piece of land that was so far away, they changed their minds. In 1896, gold was discovered in the Klondike, and Americans rushed to find their fortunes in the beautiful territory.
Tell me about the American flag.
On June 14, 1777, the Continental Congress issued a resolution. Resolved that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field, representing the new constellation. For over 200 years, people have tried to discover why this exact pattern was chosen, but we'll never know. We do know that the 13 stars represented the 13 colonies that had banded together for liberty against the British. Those colonies were Delaware, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. George Washington once explained the design of the new flag. He said, "We take the star from heaven, the red from our mother country, separated by white stripes, thus showing that we have separated from her, and the white stripes shall go down to posterity representing liberty." Over the years, the only changes on the flag have come when we have added new states. Since there are now 50 United States, our flag has 50 stars. There are some strict rules governing the use of the United States flag. They were adopted by Congress on December the 22nd, 1946. The flag must always be flown right side up except as a signal of distress. No flag must ever be flown above the flag of the United States on the same staff. When carried in a procession with other flags, it must always be on the right of the line of march. The flag should be hoisted briskly at sunrise and lowered slowly at sunset. It can only be used as a covering on a casket. The flag must never touch the ground. The flag must be folded in a certain way. First, fold it widthwise twice, leaving the Union exposed. Begin at the striped end and fold it into triangles. Repeat it only until the end of the Union is exposed. Tuck the remaining end inside. The folded flag forms a cocked hat in memory of the headgear worn by the Revolutionary Army.
What is the seal of the United States?
On July 4th, 1776, Congress appointed Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson to prepare a Great Seal of the United States. In 1782, a Great Seal was adopted, combining various designs of William Barton of Philadelphia and Sir John Prestwich, an English antiquarian. The face of the Great Seal appears on the right-hand side of every United States bill. It shows an American eagle with wings and talons outstretched. The right talon holds an olive branch, and the left holds a bundle of 13 arrows. The beak holds a ribbon on which is inscribed E pluribus unum, which means out of many, one. This is a reference to the union of the 13 states. Above the eagle's head is a circle containing 13 silver buttons. The reverse side of the seal appears on the left-hand side of the back of the United States $1 bill. It shows a pyramid with 13 steps, the base being marked 1776 in Roman numerals. Above the unfinished pyramid, there is a burst of light in which the apex of the pyramid appears as the eternal eye of God, capped by the words Annuit Coeptus, which means he has favored our undertaking. Beneath the base of the pyramid are the words Novus Ordo Secularum, which means a new order of the ages. The face of the Great Seal is affixed to foreign affairs documents, and the seal is kept by the Secretary of State.
Why is the eagle the national emblem of the United States?
The eagle is a majestic-looking bird, and it gives an impression of power in flight. It's been used by man since ancient times as a symbol of might and courage. The bald eagle is a bird found only in the United States and Canada. In 1782, Congress chose the bald eagle as our national emblem. The word bald originally meant white, so they called this eagle bald-headed, meaning that it had a white head. Although Benjamin Franklin preferred to have the turkey as our national emblem, he was outvoted in Congress.
What is the Liberty Bell?
In 1751, the Provincial Assembly for the new State House in Philadelphia ordered a bell. It arrived from England on September 1st, 1752. The first time it rang, it cracked when the clapper struck the side. The bell was recast by John Pass and Charles Stowe, who added 1 1/2 ounces of American copper per pound to the original metal. This was supposed to make it less brittle. The second bell was also defective and was recast. The third bell was hung in the State House Tower in June 1753 and rung for the first time on August 27th to convene the Assembly. The most famous occasion for ringing the bell was on July 8, 1776, when the Declaration of Independence was proclaimed. In 1777, the bell was moved to beneath the floor of the Zion Reformed Church so that it wouldn't be captured by British troops. After the Revolutionary War, it was rehung in the State House, now called Independence Hall. It rang on every festival and anniversary until July 8, 1835. It cracked during the funeral procession of Chief Justice John Marshall. It was again repaired. In 1846, during the celebration of George Washington's birthday, it cracked beyond repair. It was taken down and now hangs in a frame above a small platform in the vestibule of Independence Hall.
What is the Statue of Liberty?
After the formation of the Third Republic in France, a Monsieur Edouard de la Boulaye thought it would be a nice gesture to give America a gift in return for their support of France during the Revolution and the dangerous years that followed. In 1875, a fund was started and people from all over France contributed. Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi designed what would become a statue of a woman holding a lamp and carrying a book. It was built of hammered copper sheets. It was called Liberty Enlightening the World. After completion in 1884, the statue was dismantled and sent to America. For several years, the statue sat in pieces in Central Park. Americans slowly raised the necessary money to build a pedestal to raise the statue high. Then it was decided that the statue would be in place on Liberty Island in New York Harbor. Now known as the Statue of Liberty, it is 151 foot high and weighs 225 tons. The pedestal is 89 feet high. The statue represents a woman with a torch in her uplifted right hand, dressed in flowing robes and standing among broken chains. The book of law that she holds is inscribed with the date July 4th, 1776. The Statue of Liberty officially became a national monument in 1924. It may be reached by a ferry from Manhattan. As pollution and seawater took their toll, the statue began to rot in sections. Money was raised from all over America and a massive project was started. For 2 years, workers rebuilt parts of the statue, and the statue was finally unveiled again in July of 1986, with the presidents of France and the United States attending the ceremony. One poem has become associated with the Statue of Liberty. It is part of a sonnet called The New Colossus, written by the American poet Emma Lazarus. One stanza of the poem was engraved and mounted to the base of the statue in 1903. It goes like this. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. The Statue of Liberty and the poem engraved at the base have become the symbol for freedom all over the world. It is the property of the United States government, and it is maintained by the United States Department of the Interior.
What is the White House?
The White House is the official residence of the President of the United States. It was designed by James Hoban, an Irish-born architect. He based the design on certain buildings that he knew and admired in Ireland. The location was chosen by George Washington, but he never lived in it. The first president to live in the White House was John Adams in 1800. During the War of 1812, the British invaded Washington and burned the White House. Repairs were supervised by Hoban. In 1817, President Monroe moved into the White House and had the gray sandstone painted white to cover the smoke stains that remained after the fire. Ever since then, the building, which was called the President's Mansion, was also called the White House. It wasn't until 1902 that the official name of the President's home was changed to the White House. Massive repairs were done in 1947 and 1948 because parts of the building were sinking. President Truman supervised the repairs at that time.
Tell me about the other homes of the president.
While the president lives at the White House, he does have access to a place called Camp David. This secluded private retreat is in Maryland and was named by President Eisenhower after his grandson. At Camp David, the president may entertain visitors and hold conferences. At other times, the president may use the presidential yacht. Currently, the yacht is a converted minesweeper that was once owned by John Wayne. It's named Sequoia and is owned and maintained by the Presidential Yacht Trust. Everyone knows that the president's airplane is called Air Force One. However, most people don't know that Air Force One is the name of any airplane the president is on.
What is Mount Rushmore?
In the southwestern part of South Dakota, there are some beautiful granite mountains called the Black Hills. On one of these, there are some wonderful carvings. Mount Rushmore is 6,200 feet high. An American sculptor, Gutzon Borglum, was hired to sculpt the faces of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, and Theodore Roosevelt on the face of this mountain. The figure of George Washington was dedicated on July 4, 1930. The final figure of Roosevelt was unfinished when Borglum died. Although work was carried on by his son, the Second World War started and the work was never completed. The four figures cover a 700-foot face on the mountain. If the entire body was sculpted for the presidents, they would each be 465 feet high. Mount Rushmore is a national monument.
What are some of the important monuments in Washington?
In addition to being the seat of our government, Washington, D.C. is home to some of the most beautiful monuments dedicated to the history of the United States. The Jefferson Memorial, dedicated to the memory of Thomas Jefferson, is situated on the south bank of the tidal basin, on a line with the south axis of the White House. It is a circular, colonnaded structure, and the walls and dome of white Vermont marble reach 96 feet above the level of a walk, which circles the building. Carved above the entranceway is a massive sculptural group showing Jefferson with Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Roger Sherman, and Robert Livingston, with whom Jefferson drafted the Declaration of Independence. The interior walls contain selections from his writings. The Lincoln Memorial is situated in West Potomac Park on the main east-west axis of the city, in direct line with the Capitol and the Washington Monument. It is in Greek Doric style. Across the top are carved the names of the 36 states that were in the Union at the time of Lincoln's death. Carved on the interior walls are the texts of Lincoln's Gettysburg Address and his second inaugural speech. In the center is a statue of Abraham Lincoln. It is carved of Italian marble and is 19 feet tall. To the east of this memorial is a reflecting pool that mirrors the memorial on one side and the Washington Monument on the other. The Washington Monument is an imposing obelisk with an interior of granite and an exterior of white marble. It is 555 feet high. The cornerstone was laid in 1848, but it wasn't finished until 1885 due to difficulties with funding.
What is the Armed Forces?
There are currently 5 departments organized under the Secretary of Defense. Their duties are to protect and defend the United States of America. The Army was established by Congress in 1789. The Secretary of War was established as the head of the Army. In 1947, this title was changed to the Secretary of the Army. Before 1947, the Air Force was a part of the Army. Since then, it has been a separate military service. It includes both combat and service aviation forces. It organizes and trains and equips a force for combat operations in aerospace for the defense of the United States against attack. The Secretary of the Air Force conducts all affairs of the department. The Coast Guard operates as a branch of the Department of Transportation. Its history goes back to 1790, but was reorganized in its present form in 1915. Its functions include saving life and property at sea, enforcing maritime laws, providing navigational aids to maritime commerce and to transoceanic air commerce, promoting the efficiency of the merchant marine, and maintaining readiness for military operations. The Marine Corps was organized by the Continental Congress in 1775. The present Corps was established by Congress in 1798. It provides forces for service with the Navy to seize advanced naval bases and to conduct land operations essential to the prosecution of a naval campaign. It's also charged in coordination with the Army and Air Force with developing amphibious operations used by landing forces. The Navy was established in 1798. Its mission is to maintain combat and service forces and such aviation as may be essential to operations for sea combat, as well as such land operations by the Marine Corps as may be necessary to the naval campaign.
What are the branches of our government?
There are three branches of the United States government. The legislative department is made up of the two houses of Congress. The Senate has 2 representatives from each state. Each senator serves a term of 6 years. The House of Representatives has 435 members who are elected according to population. Each representative serves for a term of 2 years. The executive department has the president, the vice president, the cabinet, and the Office of Management and Budget. The judicial department has the judges of the United States courts. This is the Supreme Court, the inferior courts, the district courts, the Court of Claims, the Court of Customs and Patent Appeals, and the Circuit Courts of Appeals. One of the more interesting things that can happen in the legislative department occurs during debates over legislation. It is called a filibuster. It is an effort by the senators to keep a bill from coming to a vote. A senator will talk about anything, including reading books and recipes, just to stall an issue while colleagues try to get enough votes to make a bill pass or fail. The only way to stop a filibuster was to demand cloture. This meant that 2/3 of the Senate would demand that the filibuster end. Recent legislation has made it difficult to filibuster, and this long tradition of the United States Senate is drawing to an end. The Justice Department is headed by the Attorney General. The chief functions of the Justice Department are to provide means for the enforcement of federal laws, to furnish legal counsel in federal cases, and to construe the laws under which other departments act. It conducts all suits in the Supreme Court in which the United States is concerned. It supervises federal penal institutions, and it investigates federal law violations. The Supreme Court was organized in 1790 as provided for in Article 3 of our Constitution. Since 1869, there have been 9 members at all times. Justices are nominated by the President, and appointments are made with the consent of the Senate. The justices hold office for life. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is part of the Justice Department. It has jurisdiction over espionage, sabotage, treason, and other matters pertaining to the internal security of the United States. Whether the President is in the air, at sea, or on land, he is protected by the Secret Service. The Secret Service is a highly trained group of men and women whose job it is to protect officials of our government. They are part of the Treasury Department, and they include in their duties the investigation of counterfeit money. range of subjects are available in this series now. Let's look at some of the questions that are covered in the Tell Me Why programs. Weather.
A tornado is a special kind of cyclone. It arises when conditions that cause ordinary thunderstorms are unusually violent. There is an updraft of air. There are winds blowing.
Flowers.
A flower has a fragrance when certain essential oils are found in the petals. These oils are produced by the plant as part of its growing process.
Space.
Distances to the stars are so great that a unit for measuring distances was worked out. It's called a light year, and it is the distance that light travels in 1 year.
Water.
Water is a simple compound of two gases, hydrogen, a very light gas, and oxygen, a heavier active gas. When hydrogen is burned in oxygen, water is formed.
Gems.
When minerals are better, rarer, clearer, or more crystalline than others, they are called gems. Gems are the most prized and famous of all minerals. Diamonds, emeralds, rubies, and sapphires stand out as the true gems.
Ask for the additional volumes by subject from your dealer. They're available now.